Deadliest strike on Houthis yet, the U.S. airstrike on Yemen's Ras Isa oil port. On April 17, a devastating U.S. airstrike obliterated Yemen's Ras Isa oil port, marking one of the deadliest attacks on the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels to date. This operation, which took place on Good Friday, resulted in approximately 74 deaths and left 171 wounded. The strike signified a major escalation in the ongoing conflict between U.S. forces and the Houthis, intensifying tensions in a region already fraught with turmoil. Satellite imagery revealed a massive fireball lighting up the night sky, effectively erasing the port from the map, while graphic photos shared by the Houthis showed bodies strewn across the site, including those of humanitarian personnel, according to their reports. The destruction of Ras Isa, a critical oil port, has sent shockwaves across the international community. It has raised concerns about the humanitarian impact, environmental consequences, and the broader geopolitical ramifications of the conflict. We will explore the background of the Yemen conflict, the significance of the Ras Isa strike, the reactions from various parties, and what the future might hold for the region. The context: U.S. engagement in Yemen's prolonged conflict. The roots of Yemen's current civil war trace back to 2014, when the Houthi insurgents, who have close ties to Iran, seized control of the capital, Sana'a. Initially demanding lower fuel prices and government reforms, the Houthis escalated their campaign by capturing the presidential palace in January 2015, forcing Yemen's internationally recognized government into exile. This takeover prompted a coalition of Gulf states led by Saudi Arabia, with significant U.S. logistical and intelligence support, to launch an aggressive military campaign aimed at restoring the government. Starting in March 2015, the coalition imposed an economic blockade and carried out relentless airstrikes on Houthi-controlled areas. Saudi Arabia further intensified the conflict by imposing a naval blockade in June 2015 to prevent Iranian weapons from reaching the Houthis. This militarization of Yemeni waters drew the U.S. deeper into the conflict, including seizing shipments of Iranian arms bound for Yemen. However, the blockade and ongoing conflict precipitated a humanitarian catastrophe, with the United Nations estimating that 60% of the 377,000 deaths between 2015 and 2022 were due to indirect causes such as famine and lack of medical care. The Ras Isa oil port, strategic importance and targeting. The Ras Isa oil port, located approximately 38 miles north of Hodeidah along Yemen's Red Sea coast, has long been a critical infrastructure asset. Opened in the 1980s, it served as the endpoint of a 272-mile oil pipeline from the energy-rich Marib Governorate. The port had a capacity to store up to 3 million barrels of oil and transport about 200,000 barrels per day. However, oil exports have been blocked since the outbreak of the Civil War in 2014. The U.S. justified the strike by claiming the port was a source of fuel and illegal revenue for the Houthis, who have used these resources to finance attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea corridor. The U.S. Central Command stated that the operation aimed to eliminate this source of fuel for the Iran-backed Houthi terrorists and deprive them of illegal revenue. They emphasized that the strike was not intended to harm the Yemeni people, who desire peace and freedom from Houthi rule. Despite these claims, the Houthis strongly condemned the attack, labeling it a war crime since Ras Isa is a civilian facility, not a military one. They held the U.S. administration fully responsible for the consequences of escalating violence in the Red Sea. The Iranian Foreign Ministry echoed this condemnation, calling the strike a barbaric act and a blatant violation of the United Nations Charter. Humanitarian and environmental concerns. The destruction of Ras Isa has raised serious humanitarian and environmental alarms. The port and its surrounding region are crucial entry points for humanitarian aid into Yemen, with Hodeidah and Ras Isa handling as much as 80% of the country's imports. The attack risks disrupting the flow of vital fuel, food, and medical supplies to millions of Yemenis already suffering from years of conflict and famine. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed grave concerns about the airstrikes, particularly regarding civilian casualties and the potential for an oil spill into the Red Sea. An environmental disaster in this vital waterway could have catastrophic consequences for marine life, regional economies, and global shipping lanes. UN Special Envoy for Yemen Hans Grunberg also voiced alarm over the impact of the strikes on civilians and infrastructure, warning that the cycle of attacks by both the Houthis and the U.S. jeopardizes peace efforts and risks drawing Yemen further into the regional conflict. He called for restraint, de-escalation, and respect for international humanitarian law by all parties involved. The escalation of U.S. military operations in 2024. The April 17 strike followed a significant U.S. airstrike on March 15 that killed at least 31 people and was described by then-President Donald Trump as a message to both the Houthis and their Iranian backers. Through his social media posts, Trump issued stern warnings to the Houthis, signaling a campaign to restore freedom of navigation and re-establish American deterrence in the Red Sea. The Trump administration's military operations in Yemen represent the largest U.S. campaign in the Middle East since his inauguration. These airstrikes have targeted a broad range of Houthi assets, including military infrastructure, leadership figures, command and control centers, and commercial infrastructure. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz claimed that key Houthi leadership had been eliminated, including their head missiler, although these claims remain unconfirmed by Houthi sources. U.S. strikes have been reported in multiple locations, including the capital Sana'a, the southwestern city of Taiz, the power station in Dayan, and the oil-rich Marib Governorate. Marib is a particularly strategic target as it is home to about 90% of Yemen's oil and gas resources. The coastal Hodeidah Governorate, encompassing the Ras Isa port, has also been heavily targeted, with attacks on Salef Port, Hodeidah International Airport, and other key facilities. Houthi responses and regional implications. The Houthis have not remained passive in the face of U.S. airstrikes. Since October 2023, following the Hamas-Israel conflict escalation, the Houthis openly declared their support for Palestine and began launching missile and drone attacks targeting Israel and commercial shipping in the Red Sea. On November 19, 2023, they hijacked the commercial vessel Galaxy Leader, marking a significant escalation in their maritime actions. These attacks have severely disrupted shipping in the Red Sea, prompting major shipping companies to boycott the region, thereby increasing shipping and insurance costs globally and contributing to the ongoing cost of living crisis. By January 2024, the Houthis were reclassified as a terrorist organization by the US and the UK, with coordinated airstrikes following shortly after. After a temporary halt following the Israel-Hamas ceasefire in January 2025, the Houthis resumed attacks in March in protest of Israeli military operations in Gaza. This ongoing tit-for-tat dynamic has entrenched the conflict further, with the U.S. determined to curb Houthi aggression and protect navigation routes, while the Houthis continue their campaign of resistance and regional support for Palestinian causes. Controversies and international reactions. The Ras Isa strike has drawn intense international scrutiny, particularly due to the Houthis' claims that it was a civilian site and the disturbing images of casualties and destruction. The possibility that the U.S. employed a double strike tactic, where a second strike targets first responders to maximize casualties, has been suggested by some analysts, further fueling controversy. Within the U.S., the conduct of the Trump administration in planning these strikes has been criticized. Notably, journalist Jeffrey Goldberg revealed that he was inadvertently included in a private signal chat among senior Trump officials discussing imminent attacks, raising concerns about operational security and data management. These issues have prompted congressional investigations into the administration's handling of military operations in Yemen. Geopolitical dimensions, Iran, China, and nuclear negotiations. The U.S. strikes on the Houthis are part of a broader strategy to counter Iran's influence in the region. The Houthis are widely recognized as Iranian proxies, and their attacks on shipping lanes and Israel are seen as extensions of Tehran's regional ambitions. Following the Ras Isa operation, U.S. and Iranian officials met in Rome for nuclear talks, which were reportedly productive but are expected to continue for some time. The U.S. is also concerned about Chinese involvement. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce accused Changguang Satellite Technology, a Chinese commercial satellite imagery provider, of aiding the Houthis by supplying images used to target U.S. and international vessels in the Red Sea. This company has been linked to China's People's Liberation Army and was previously sanctioned for assisting Russian mercenaries in Ukraine. These developments highlight the complex international dimensions of the Yemen conflict, with global powers vying for influence and strategic advantage while local populations bear the brunt of the violence. The human cost and the path forward. The ongoing conflict in Yemen, exacerbated by recent U.S. airstrikes, has taken a devastating toll on civilians. Houthi officials claim that U.S. strikes since mid-March have killed 205 civilians and injured 406 more, predominantly women and children. Civilian infrastructure, including airports, markets, and sanitation projects, has been repeatedly targeted or caught in the crossfire. Humanitarian organizations warn of a worsening crisis, with millions at risk of famine and lacking access to essential services. The UN has launched appeals for billions of dollars in aid to assist Yemen's 19.5 million people in need, emphasizing the vulnerability of women and girls. Looking ahead, the conflict shows little sign of abating. The U.S. continues its campaign to dismantle Houthi capabilities, while the rebels persist in their attacks on maritime and regional targets. The potential for a broader ground offensive led by Yemen's government in exile remains under discussion, adding another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Conclusion: a region on edge. The airstrike on Yemen's Ras Isa oil port represents a pivotal moment in the ongoing conflict between the U.S. and the Iran-backed Houthis. It underscores the escalating military confrontation and the intertwined nature of regional politics, humanitarian crises, and global security concerns. While the U.S. aims to curtail Houthi aggression and protect vital shipping lanes, the humanitarian consequences and international backlash highlight the challenges of conducting military operations in such a complex environment. The potential environmental disaster, civilian casualties, and disruption of aid delivery further complicate prospects for peace. The conflict's trajectory will likely be influenced by broader geopolitical negotiations, including U.S.-Iran nuclear talks and regional alliances. The involvement of external powers such as China adds yet another dimension to an already intricate conflict. For Yemen and its people, the stakes could not be higher. As the world watches, the need for restraint, diplomacy, and humanitarian support remains urgent. The Ras Isa strike may have extinguished a key Houthi fuel source, but the fuse of conflict continues to burn brightly. We invite you to share your thoughts on the current U.S. activity in Yemen and its potential consequences. How do you see this conflict evolving, and what might be the path to lasting peace? Join the conversation below.